Hey, what's good? Citizens Impeachment is an organization that connects American citizens with a single goal: to get the U.S. Congress to impeach Donald Trump, convict him, and remove him from power. Citizens Impeachment was co founded by a former Senate staffer who worked inside the legislative branch during both impeachments, and Keira Havens, who is a United States Air Force veteran, a former scientist, and a longtime political activist. I have been testing out new recording software and I had technical difficulties, but Kira has already agreed to come back onto the channel and finish our conversation. But C4 Explosive joins me for this first part of my conversation with Keira Havens. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. So when I tell you guys that I'm a fan of rabble rousers and that I like to bring people to your attention that are trying to make the world a better place, I'm basically talking about people like Keira Havens. This is Keira Havens from Citizens Impeachment. Hi.
Hello, hello. Glad to be here.
Nice to finally meet you.
Yes, I'm happy to be talking to people. We're at the point where impeachment has gone mainstream, and so are we.
And come to the front of the class, the one and only C4
Thanks for having
Explosives.
me.
Hello.
Hello. Pardon my voice.
Yeah, we are learning about the limitations of the United States healthcare plan directly from Mike. He's not feeling good and he's looking for help, and they told him to go home and take a nap.
That's it. Pretty much.
So let's jump on it. Let's get into it right away. Citizens impeachment. What do you guys do?
Well, right what it says on the tin. We're a bunch of citizens. We are after the impeachment of Donald Trump and his enablers. We've been around since April 2025, entirely grassroots, entirely unfunded. We're all extremely tired, but what we've been really attempting to bully our way into the halls of power, quite frankly, because Congress
Mm-hmm.
has stopped listening to us and has abdicated their responsibility to rein in the executive branch. They've just been sitting on their hands for about 9 months now, and so we have been after them to get moving.
Is there a technique that you guys are using, or are you guys just calling and annoying and calling and annoying and
Yeah, so one of the most surprising things I learned in this process was that most offices have a completely separate avenue for what they call constituent correspondence. So when you, as a constituent, call them up or send an email requesting a written response or something like that through their contact form, they send it to someone whose only job is to provide you with pre-written PDFs. At
mm-hmm.
like some point in the future. You guys have all had this happen, right? Where you send in a comment and then 4 months later you get a PDF that's basically completely irrelevant to your question.
Yeah.
That's because you are a constituent. That's why you get that terrible response.
Yeah.
So what we do is we actually look for the people in the offices and we get their email addresses and we take legislative questions to the legislative director and we take requests for comment to the press director and we try to gear the citizen interaction to the specific person responsible for handling that within the office. So we know at the very least we are reaching a human being and not just being pushed into a spreadsheet or a workflow for that PDF. We're really trying to get past that barrier.
I'm trying to figure out. Okay, let me say it like this: why do we have money to flip rockets and land them on these really cool targets that we put in the middle of the ocean, but we don't have money to improve the process of actual governing?
That is a great question. Let me tell you, I would like to change that. As after 9 months of doing this, we have actually gone ahead and set up a PAC to make that happen. We're looking to make government more responsive. It's called Courage for Democracy. We have a number of courage candidates that are willing to actually step up. They've endorsed the impeachment articles that we've written. They will introduce them on day one of their term. But a huge piece of this is just putting people into office that actually listen to their constituents, right? Um, the Congress has a vested interest in not listening. They have a vested interest in continuing to play the status quo corporate game. And
Mm-hmm.
if they were to stand up and use their powers, right, the powers that they have as one of the most powerful groups of people in the entire world to censure their colleagues or expel them even from the Senate if they are not doing their job, to pursue the impeachment of the executive, to call special committees and look into, I mean, at this point, every single day, there's something that you could do a special committee to investigate. That To enforce subpoenas, that's another big one. You can arrest people for not showing up if they refuse to come talk to Congress. There is so much that Congress could be doing, but that would rock the boat. And so they don't.
And I got excited, and I'm working through my ADHD, and I'm trying really hard to not interrupt people. But
You're
when you
good.
said, you were talking about basically they're wasting time and they're not letting us get to the point where we get to ask questions of our representatives and being able to actually make them do something.
Hmm.
How did we even get here?
That's such a good question. Um, so in 1995, this is a little bit of history that we've pieced together. In 1995, Newt Gingrich and the Contract for America took the House.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they the Democratic Party got crushed in those midterms. And what happened was a new form of governance in the Senate. Something called unanimous consent took center stage. So the Senate is full of weird old rules because it is a weird old institution.
And weird old
Um,
people.
and weird old people, yeah. And so the Senate has a way to bypass those weird old rules called unanimous consent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if a senator wants to bypass the rule, they say, "Hey guys, can we skip the rule?" And if nobody objects to skipping the rule, unanimous consent, then they can skip it and they can do whatever they want. And what this does is it really speeds up things like nominations or confirmations. It speeds up the legislative calendar so you can get to big pieces of legislation faster. All it takes to object to this is just to raise your hand as a senator and say, "I object." That's it. You don't have to plan with anybody. You get to make a little speech about why you object, right? Which is nice if you want to tell people that. But it takes zero preparation or planning, and there's zero consequence for it. You can just object. Um,
And they're
the
not even
Senate,
forced to come up with like an alternative plan. They just say,
no.
no, I don't like that. Well, okay, well, how are we going to do it better then?
Well,
And
So
then
we
they get to walk away.
so they just have to follow their own rules. That's it. This is a request to skip the rules. And so you say, "No, we have to follow the rules this time." That's the entirety of this process.
Oh my.
Um, The Senate has granted unanimous consent, at least by the time I stopped counting last year around September, about 1,000 times. And what
My
that means
God.
is that they have confirmed this Trump administration's nominees at a rate at by like a month in at a rate faster than both Biden and Trump number one combined. Like this is just in the congressional record that they were just sending these guys straight through. And the reason I bring this up is because prior to this 1995 moment, unanimous consent got used like 200 times a year, maybe. After that, it was up in the 6 and 7,000 times per year. Just an enormous leap in this sort of lockstep refusal to govern under the actual rules, refusal to oppose skipping the rules. It became a central feature of the way this democracy worked. And most of the senators that are in place right now have been there for 30 plus years. So they're still living in the 1990s, behaving as if Bill Clinton had just got impeached. and
For real.
and operating in the past. And so, you've heard the Carlin joke, right? It's a big club and you're not in it. And we are
Hmm.
definitely not in it, but they all are, and they're working to preserve that club.
Do you guys focus on or do term limits come up in your conversations?
Yeah, we have been like laser focused on impeachment because impeachment is something that the House can do right now immediately every single day. Like that is any representative can file articles of impeachment, any representative can force those articles to a vote. And so we have really focused on making that specific piece of Congress work because in order to do that, you got to grow a spine. And you have to be
Yeah.
willing to say, well, this is unconstitutional, and therefore I am going to hold this administration accountable, which is something that Congress struggles with, right? The short version is that we are not looking at term limits yet. We've been laser focused on impeachment because that's something that the House can do right now immediately. But what we hope to do through this Courage for Democracy PAC is really build out these policy positions that make for a more responsive government and find candidates that are going to make those possible.
One of the things that really frustrates me about this whole apparatus is normal people are supposed to follow the rules and we're told what to do and how to do and all these things. Meanwhile, the people that are in charge should have more rules and you're supposed to follow the process that's available. Um, why is it flipped? We're the boss. We're asking you what well, I understand that everyone is old and they're in Congress and blah, 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 all that stuff. But how are we going to get back to the point where they're the ones that have to live on a different level and the normal folks shouldn't have to worry about them that much?
This is a great question as well. I mean, my personal response at this point is by bullying them relentlessly. That is the way forward
Oh, the
because
way that they do us. Okay, cool.
yeah, they seem motivated by shame, quite frankly. We just learned recently that apparently they can't delete comments from their official social media accounts. So, I mean, go tear them a new one. Yeah. I mean, and we've seen several times. No, nobody has admitted this, right? But we've seen, at least in the work that we've been doing, somebody will show up, yell at them in whatever social media platform they prefer, and then the next day they change their position on something.
Yeah.
And we've seen it as well with the formal work that we've been doing. Just yesterday, Representative Jeffries, the minority leader, went on CNN to explain to folks how the House has impeachment authority and that they can introduce impeachment articles under Rule 9. For 9 straight months, Jeffries has been insisting that they cannot pursue impeachment. We know this because every time we suggest that they should pursue impeachment, there's an article in Axios about how mad it makes the Democrats that somebody is making them impeach. And Jeffries is in there saying it's not possible. And now, 9 months later, we have built enough public pressure that he has to go on national television and say, yeah, I guess we actually do have this power. We can use it and do things with it.
He's digging his own grave. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Not at
Hakeem
all.
Jeffries is digging his own grave. What he doesn't understand is Mike and I, just got done interviewing Vance Boston.
Hey,
Amazing. He's one of our courage
yes,
candidates.
he is.
Excellent. Yes. And let me tell you, the energy that Vance is bringing to the argument is incomparable. Hakeem Jeffries, I'm looking at him and I'm like, come on, my guy. You got this guy from New York and you're like, this dude's going to have teeth. And then he shows up all gums, which in a different discussion, okay, cool, but not this one.
You're in danger. Yeah. I mean, it's really the contrast between the courage candidates have been one of the most hopeful things that we have done. So there's 83 of them now from 28 states
Oh, wow.
in
Nice.
gubernatorial races and in federal Senate and House races. And these people give a shit. Like they care. That's why they're in this. And for a lot
Yeah.
of them, this is not this hasn't been like a lifelong dream to be a politician. This is people who had like real lives and careers saying, well, I can clear this bar of these feckless cowards that are in Congress right now. So I'm going to do
hmm
it and I'm going to take the fight to them because apparently the only thing elected representatives understand is if you threaten their job. So, all right,
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's make them afraid that they're not going to keep their job next year. We can do that.
And they think they could be there
Hmm.
forever.
Do you think the tamping down on social media of all of these grassroots candidates is done on purpose?
Yeah, shadow banning is, I mean, that's a big question, right? We've seen it throughout the Palestine protest movement, right? There is a aggressive tamping down and suppression of Palestinian content of any kind.
Hmm.
It is a big danger of having, large tech companies control both the infrastructure and the delivery of
Hmm.
content that you yourself create. Um, and it is unfortunately extremely difficult to say whether or not this is a specific action of a specific individual or if it is, you know, the algorithm, which is also
Hmm.
values codified by individuals, right?
Hmm.
But this is part of the obfuscation. This is part of the lack of transparency that is super frustrating to and prevents the connection of like the government and the governed. Because once you connect those two pieces, um, then stuff starts to change, right? We're seeing it with the outrage after the executions of ICE, right? Recently on
Hmm.
Yep.
camera, terrible, has galvanized the entirety of the nation above and beyond Minnesota, and they are forced to walk back their positions now on ICE entirely, on funding it, on Kristi Noem, on impeachment even.
Hmm.
But it should not take the murders of Americans on camera in cold blood to start this process, right? We should be able to handle this without murders.
Think of this. Think of how upset everyone was when 9/11 happened.
Mm.
Someone came and killed a bunch of innocent Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So now what are we going to do when Americans are killing innocent Americans?
This
You
is,
remember how pissed off we were when it happened? We were mad at everybody, Brown, that didn't come from here. Everybody was holding hands. People in New York were all smiling and stuff. You remember?
I was there, yeah. And people were
Yeah.
mad at brown folks in the US too as an excuse to really come down on folks that are Muslim and even folks that look like Muslims. Like that anger was directed everywhere.
So now where's that same anger when we're sitting here watching Americans getting killed?
Yeah.
Mm.
We would be pissed if it was a completely other country doing this.
Yep. And now all these guys have to backtrack on everything that they put all their eggs they put in the same basket for this guy and the administration and their vision that they stand upon. They don't want to climb back and retract from that hill.
Yeah, but I mean, let's remember, right? DHS didn't exist 20 years ago. I am older than DHS. I lived before it. It was fine. We
INS.
don't have to have it
I'm
there,
older than
right?
a lot of
All
things.
of this anger and this rage. Oh, I'm so sorry. What was that?
I just said I'm older than a lot of things.
Yeah. But
I'm
there's this
teasing.
there's this assumption that the way things are is the way they have to be, and they don't.
Right.
They can change. And so one of the things that
Right.
we've been trying to do is harness the rage and the anger and turn it into something focused, right? Because otherwise you just get burned out on outrage. Being able to find those
Hmm.
avenues, those approaches to actual change is a big piece of the puzzle.
I just think of growing up, and I remember everyone telling me how, don't worry about it. You can't change the government. Nothing can change. Nothing can change. And this is going to sound silly. The one thing that made me realize that nothing is set in stone is the fact that Hawaii is constantly growing as we speak.
I grew up in Hawaii. Did you know that?
I didn't. That's cool.
Yeah. Hmm.
What was that
So it's the
like?
volcano. Madame Pele spoke to you and said, more land coming every day. Okay. Yep.
And then like you go to science class, and then oh, we know all the animals, and then you go and watch National Geographic, and they discover like five new animals almost every day now.
Yeah. A lot of what we're told about the world. I was a scientist in a past life. Like I said, politics has not always been my thing. And the closer you get to the edge of that knowledge, the more you realize that all the categories and all of the knowns are How to
This is
describe
what
it?
we know up till now.
Yeah, this is what we know up till now, right? As we build more
Yeah,
knowledge, as we understand better, our understanding changes and we do better,
right.
right? And so
Hmm.
there is no excuse for staying static.
We're talking to people who think everything is set in stone. So then, when a younger group of people that want to take over politics, the new politicians get this bad stain on them, we'll say, because of all the previous politicians. And when we have this younger crop of folks that are they look at money a different way. They look at responsibility to society in a different way. So all you old folks that don't like change and that are afraid to change, like, it's gonna happen. And you can't fight change and point at politicians and say they're corrupt. You can't do that. It's time to break all of those chains that are holding you back and pay attention to this younger generation that's saying enough is enough. We need to do things better.
And yeah, let's be real honest too. Like, how are things going right now?
Hmm.
The old guard has got us here. It is time to let that go. But we hear over and over again from the courage candidates that they are stonewalled by Democratic parties. They are
Hmm.
rejected in favor of incumbents or the party favorite that has been kind of handpicked based on their network. They get frozen out of media, they get ignored, and it is truly a shame that folks are not willing to actually operate in small d democracy, right? Where
Hmm.
the actual choice is left to the people, and the people are able to choose the representative that they feel best fits them.
Yeah. And it's not supposed to be, especially the House. The House is not supposed to be all lawyers because they're going to look out for all the other lawyers. We need teachers, we need scientists, and we're going to get right back to that, young lady.
Sure.
Just dropping that in there. I'm a scientist.
I've
We
done
need
I've done a lot of
scientists in there. We need people that used to work at the carnival. We
things.
need people represented. And then if you think that the House of Representatives is supposed to be all of these high ranking, whatever the hell, and all these educated people and all that, that's just not the case. I'll give that to you for the Senate, but the House, we need people who are connected to you
Yeah.
to be sharing your message. And it is incredibly helpful if they come from or if they live in the area in which you live.
Definitely.
How wild is it that we have people in the House of Representatives that are representing an area and they live in a completely different state?
Yeah, I was just talking to a group out in Fayetteville, and their representative is Rouser, and apparently he just lives elsewhere and conducts all of his business from elsewhere, and that is that. And still, he has been in office for, I mean, an ungodly number of years, a couple decades at least, And there's the inertia, the something you talked a little bit about, sort of the despair that nothing can change, right? That inertia is it disincentivizes a lot of people from engaging in politics whatsoever. But I I truly hope, and we tell this to all the candidates too, I truly hope that the folks that have been sitting it out and sitting on the sidelines take it up and vote and actually participate. America gets like 30% of its population to vote on any given election day, and that is not enough. Not enough. If you think politics is not for you, if you think they have been ignoring your voice, if you think nothing can change, I just really urge you to reconsider that opinion, because that's not true. It takes the participation to get the change.
And if you're afraid to vote Democrat, some of these young independents and
Hmm.
Democratic people that are running under the Democrat umbrella, think of this. Republicans are exporting jobs every way they can, whether it's going to AI, Costa Rica, China. They're exporting all of these jobs, and they're telling you to pull yourself up by the bootstraps while they have their hand in the government's pocket.
They get paid for a lot of work they don't do. I'll just say that.
Yes, ma'am. Why do you think Elon Musk didn't touch the Defense Department when he was doing his Doge thing?
Oh, that's where all the money's going to tech folks now. That's where it all comes from.
Yeah, everyone says USA didn't do anything. No, well, we know for a fact that the Department of Defense did a whole bunch of things.
Sure.
They haven't passed one. What is it? They haven't passed one
An audit, yeah.
audit,
I think they've had 6 now.
and everyone is talking about like feeding kids, or they're fighting against feeding kids and actually having good schools and stuff.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy?
It is wild, and I'll say I'm a veteran, and like I came from that world, and it is the fraud, waste, and abuse component of it. I mean, there is so much power locked in to defense spending, and uh, there is so much political weight, and it's a big avenue of how a lot of communities receive funding or jobs or what have you, right? But what that means is that there is very often not a sober assessment of what is actually necessary to do the fight, right? To get the fight done. And you end up playing politics with the defense budget. You end up with political considerations rather than what is best for the fighting force. And that's just been a reality for a very long time, that there is not just a military industrial complex, which is very real and very, very active, right? But a military political complex that is growing increasingly stronger year over year.
And that's code word for they're all friends. Everyone in
It's a big
Congress
club,
is all friends. They all
big
go to the
club, and
same
you're not in
schools.
it.
They all go to the same. They all blow the same bubba. It's
Cool.
Oh, that's too much. I don't I don't want to think
let's
about that.
change. Let's talk about education. I
Sure.
love scientists. I
Okay.
love smart people.
Excellent.
Did you always want to be a scientist, like when you grew up?
Oh yeah, I was a big nerd from when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I loved it. Yep.
Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Hawaii, so actually I
Oh,
wanted to be a marine biologist at the start.
how old were you when you came back to the mainland?
When I went to college, so I went to school in Chicago, and it was a big
Yes,
shift.
ma'am. Yes,
Yep,
ma'am.
Chicago's great. I love it.
Yeah, same. We're both from Chicago.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Are you Sox or
Would you
Cubs?
Cubs?
Socks.
He's
Socks.
Well,
he's
that we can't
he's
talk anymore.
socks.
We gotta end the conversation here. South
Yeah.
side all the way for
There
me.
you go. There you go.
Okay. Thank you for coming
You
on.
said you
I can't. Mike could take over from here. I gotta go. I gotta go wash my eyes out. South side. So now I know that you cheated on your homework.
Oh, damn it, man.
No, I was the kid helping people on their homework. That's too much of a nerd to do any cheating.
What school did you go to?
Illinois Institute of Technology on the south side of
Okay.
Chicago.
Nice. Nice.
Hmm.
Did you ever go to the Museum of Science and Industry?
Oh man, I think like once while I was there.
Yeah. That place is awesome.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That place is awesome. Are you in Chicago now, or where are you now?
No, actually, I'm in Colorado. Jason Crow's
Okay.
district, actually. He's my rep.
Oh, shout out Jason Crow.
Mm.
Hopefully,
Well, I'm a little
maybe.
disappointed in his activities. Don't he
Ah,
hasn't
kick
he hasn't
rocks,
been taking
Mr.
a
Crow.
stand.
Do you have a courage candidate in that area?
We don't yet. We do have a couple courage candidates in Colorado. One of them is running against Diana DeGette, who has been again in Congress for close to 30 years. Um, One of them is, I believe, stepping up to run in the Senate race. And actually, you can find a whole list of all of our candidates on just citizensimpeachment.com/courage candidates. And that is just growing exponentially.
Yeah, I don't doubt that because people are tired of the status quo.
Absolutely.
People are tired of struggling. People are tired. So when we get to meet with people like you and tap into your efforts and then the little team that you're building and all of these folks have not necessarily the same exact vision, but they have the same vision for making things better for everyone. It's
Yeah.
just so refreshing to see someone who's running for office that is not, you know, cut out of a magazine, and they have all the receipts for the high priced clothing that they wear and all this stuff. I just love seeing normal people wanting
Yeah.
to represent other normal people.
Yeah.
It is kind of a miracle, right? So we actually let me just run through the folks that are on the courage candidates from Colorado, since we're chit-chatting about them, so you can kind of see how many folks are there and how many different types of places, right? If that's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so Melat Kiros, who is a Justice Democrat candidate as well, she is, she has been a barista and she works with renters and she understands how healthcare needs to be affordable. And she's the one that's running against Diana DeGette. John Padora out in Colorado 4, he's running against Lauren Boebert now, right? And he's a carpenter. And so these folks live normal lives. Like they have normal
Yeah.
life experience. Zuri Horowitz is running in Colorado 5. She works with granting agencies. She has worked with behavioral health and transportation. And there's there's a huge breadth of experience here that is
Mm-hmm.
missing, as you say, right? Because we have a House of Representatives full of lawyers. So
Yeah.
it's really wonderful to be able to pull the stories of actual people and bring them front and center and say it could be done differently, you know?
I'm going to jump back to your science
Sure, sure.
because I fixate on smart people stuff.
All good.
What kind of scientist did you become?
I like like to work inside the cell. So DNA, proteins, it's called molecular biochemistry, just looking at how the information and the physical world interact with each other.
Can you tell in that DNA strand and the cells and stuff? Can you tell who's black and white and brown and yellow and red?
This is a great question. So we talk about the human species and we talk about different kinds of humans, right? Brown, black, yellow, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain similarities within groups, right? Some groups will share certain genetic types. This is true. But what's crucial to know is that if you compare any individual within one of those groups to any individual in any other group, there's more variation in that single group than there is in the whole. We are all the same species and we are all humans, and it is depressing that we have to make that clarification because race science is absolutely on the rise and people are trying to use biology to justify bigotry in a really big way. We're seeing this come out more and more in comments around IQ. IQ is a man, it's a lazy way to categorize people. Let me say it that way, right? It is entirely situational dependent, it is entirely context dependent, and it is not
Mm-hmm.
immutable. But people use it that way. They use it as like, here is your station in life. You can't ever get above this. And that gets tied in a very real way to policies that are put forth by this growing fascist movement, right? There is an idea that there is a hierarchy and that the hierarchy is natural and you can't
Mm-hmm.
ever move from your place in that hierarchy. And this is where a lot of um, these really racist immigration raids are coming from, right? Their
Mm-hmm.
concept that if only we removed the people that are not good, that are bad on this hierarchy, the people on the lower end, if we just got rid of them, society would get better. That's the concept because we're messing with the natural order by including these people in our society. And this is a lie. There is no hierarchy. Nature laughs at categories. It does
Mm-hmm.
not ascribe to the social order that we put in place. So when we talk about the information contained in genes, it is super important that we remember that that is like the beginning of the story, not the end. The person is much more than just that collection of genes. That was my little rant on that subject. It's one that's near and dear to my heart.
No, I love it because you're breaking things down. You know, you can have a bunch of gorillas out in the street talking, "Ooh, white people are better, black people are better, whatever, whatever, whatever." But when you have a proper scientist who has used technology to actually study the makeup of the human body, and that person tells you there ain't no difference, now I can run out into the streets and tell all these monkeys to shut the hell up. You're sitting there with your, your science coat on, and you got your beakers, and you got your little Bunsen burner, and your magnifying glass, and then whatever that is, not telescope, microscope, and then one day you're like, I need to fix the United States. Like, walk me through that conversation.
Sure, sure. So I haven't been at the bench in a really long time. I'll just say that up front. They discovered that I could talk to humans, and so they sent me out to do science communication, to go tell people about science and talk them through the tech and all of that sort of stuff. And I did that for about 6 or 7 years. And along the way, that little rant that you heard about race science, that's something that I got interested in just a couple years ago. It became really apparent to me with the rise of these, man, I don't know what to call them other than fascist elements, right? That were using biology to justify their fascism. And that made me mad, man. Like I love science. I'm a huge nerd. There's no way to overstate how much of a nerd I am, and that they were using my specialty, my field, to justify this bullshit. No, we're not doing that. So I started doing research into the networks of people that were mainstreaming this race science stuff. And what you find out is that all of these folks are talking to each other, and a lot of them are involved in the Trump administration in one way or another, and a lot of them are involved in the tech bro world, making, that technology more fascist than it needs to be. So that was kind of the entry point for paying attention to this stuff in a new way. And then, man, once you get to the genocide in Palestine, right? That was a combination of all this race science hierarchy stuff. It was a combination of my experience in the military, just seeing what was coming, and a combination of just watching the silence that accompanied the United States fully funding this horrific set of human rights abuses. And I think at that point it was pretty much over for me. I was in politics one way or another after that, Just the way once again, talking about responsive government, the way the Democrats simply absolutely refused to listen to anything that their base had to say, and instead worked to crush human rights protests by students and others. Truly disheartening, truly radicalizing.
Yeah, that is heartbreaking, because you see the hypocrisy alone.
Yep.
We're worried about life when it has something to do with the woman's choice, but then we just straight up give up on people.
Yep.
And we're seeing the stuff in Palestine, with all due respect, that's not new. That's not new. I grew up in the streets. They've been fucking black and brown people up. They've been doing this. I've had a front row seat to cops I've had a front row seat.
Well, Chicago has had torture chambers, right? Their cops brought people back to do black site stuff. So, yeah.
Yep. And then if you know anything about Northern Illinois, there's a town called Rockford there too. Rockford is Chicago's little brother that wants to outdo things. So if Chicago brings a gun, Rockford brings 2 guns.
Okay.
So growing up between Rockford and Chicago, I had a front row seat to this stuff. And then when you see it playing out on the news, and it looks very similar to what they're doing other places, and you start to point out the similarities, like that they're talking about people in Gaza the same way they talk about us.
Exactly. Yep.
You just got done saying that I poisoned the blood of your country and all this stuff.
Yep.
You're gonna start bombing us now, and then they sick ice on us.
Well, and I mean, let's just be real clear, right? These folks are all in conversation with each other. The IDF trains ICE. The IDF trains the NYPD. Folks fly over there to get training. There is a cop compound, I believe it's in Atlanta, called Little Gaza. All of this
Oh
stuff
my God.
plays into each other because it's all the same tactics trying to enforce this hierarchy, which again is false. There is no hierarchy. The only hierarchy is what we as society imposes.
Like you hear people say, they put their pants on one leg at a time, and then for some reason, when folks go outside, they forget that that's there, and then there's like this, like you said, like this self-imposed hierarchy.
Yeah. And it's all the same tools that get used also. When we went into Iraq in 2003, right? There were op-eds in the New York Times that effectively said Iraq is too stupid to govern itself, low IQ, right? When the genocide in Palestine started, they issued basically that same press release. It was another paper, and they said the IQ of Palestinians is 75. They can't govern themselves because the goal is to take away agency from the folks at the bottom, to keep them in the bottom, so that hierarchy remains in place. Once you start looking at that, as you look at supremacy in any capacity, and you start to get to know how hierarchy reinforces its power, you see it everywhere.
I'm hesitating because you're giving information that's just,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know it's a lot.
but it needs to be heard. Because we continue, when we turn on the news or we're watching our YouTube videos or whatever it is, we keep hearing about this Israeli or the government of Israel and how they have their hands in everything. And if you think
You
about
mean
it,
like influencing Congress and such?
yeah,
Okay.
and now influencing police and how policing is done, and then taking a look and incorporating that with all the knowledge that I have from having the front row seat to this violence and actually surviving, and you start to put the pieces together, and and you get upset. I get upset because when you have put so much time and effort into pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and working really hard and doing all the things that everyone ever told you to do, and then you realize that, and you hear the old folks saying, the game is fixed, the game is fixed. And you're like, they're just old. And then when you get to this point and you're like, oh my God, not only are they sicking the cops on us, ICE on us, doing all this stuff, but they're also withdrawing funding to education. And they're also putting out this propaganda against who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And then you go to broke white folks and you're telling them this is what's happening. And they're like, nah, we're good. USA all the way. And then you expect the black and brown communities to tap into that bullshit.
Yeah.
God, I'm so excited that you and your organization exist. Shout out to literally everyone that you said on that list.
Oh, that's just 3 people. There are 80
That's
of them
just
in
3
there.
people.
Yeah,
Right.
take a look at them. Find your candidate. I mean, the best thing people can do right now is make Congress afraid for their jobs. We just counted it out. I think we have 278 days till the midterms. Oh, there you go, Bernard Taylor.
Yeah.
Are
Bernard
you
Taylor.
in Florida?
Yeah, he's in my district. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Bernard is also one of our current
Yeah.
candidates.
Oh, I
Yeah.
got Russ.
Yeah.
So
Bernard Taylor's the truth.
Russ Cleveland. We got a lot of them
Yeah.
around.
Russell
We
Cleveland.
we brought a lot on the
so
show.
is he.
Yep.
That's fantastic, man. Like this, so all of these folks that you've mentioned, they're all courage candidates, right? They all came to us and said, like, we are in it for the fight, and we said, awesome, join us. We're gonna make this thing a movement.
What is that like? What's the relationship building between your organization and maybe a candidate that's interested in being a part of the courage candidates?
Yeah, so we have a real low bar. If you are pro-impeachment and you are pro-democracy, anti-corruption, anti-authoritarian, and anti-oligarch, congratulations, you're in. The candidates just expanded their platform to include abolishing ICE, so you're going to have to clear that bar as well. But
And all you have to do is not be an asshole.
That is correct. That not an asshole. Yeah. And that's the only rule. And we we are just we are floored by the number of stories that we hear where folks espousing these these pro-democracy platforms are being shut out by the parties that they're supposed to be participating in, who you think would be stoked to adopt these. But on the other hand, what we're also hearing is that the second they start talking about this, the second they start saying, yes, let's go to impeachment, yes, let's abolish ICE, so do their opponents in the primary race. Because again, everybody that's in Congress right now is a coward, right?
They're cheating off of papers.
Yeah,
They're no scientists at all.
We see the language coming out from what we're doing out into the mainstream in an incredible fashion, right? When we started the courage candidates, all of a sudden the word courage was everywhere. When we started talking about ICE as a paramilitary force that was deploying to cities, like AOC said it the next day. It's somehow the language is getting out there and it is changing the conversation. And of course, impeachment, right? We're now at the point where the representatives are carrying it forward themselves, and good for them on that. We're not going to stop until it's done. But there are obviously eyes on this, and they're obviously taking notes from it, but the action hasn't quite followed through in the same way. So that's why we have to keep the pressure up.
Yeah, it's going to be a good day when we get fresh blood in there. Nobody should be in Congress for 50 years. No. Rules have changed so much, and society itself has changed so much.
Yep.
How long have you been interested in politics?
I mean, I helped out with campaign, like I would call for campaigns and I would write letters and stuff like that, but I haven't really organized before, not the way I'm doing now.
It's impressive to me, and now that I know that you're like a scientist and a veteran and all that stuff, like this is smart people shit. So now it makes a lot of sense.
I would say it's determined people shit, honestly, because I mean, the specifics of it are not really that difficult. You just have to be willing to say the thing that you mean and then stick to it and refuse to get off track. It's the refusing to get off track piece that has been the most difficult, because usually what will happen when we bring a concern to Congress is that they'll say, oh, well, it's not possible because X, Y, and Z. Or, oh, we're doing this other thing over here, so we can't do that, right? Or, we'll just have to wait on this one because we don't have the votes. And so there are a lot of off-ramps for people, and a lot of our job is just convincing, your average citizen that, one, they have agency, and like you said at the start, these folks work for them, right? Mm-hmm. And then two, it's teaching them how to listen past all of the words to get to the action, to get to, and this is what I will do. Mm-hmm. One of our tools for people that meet their reps is we tell them, ask for a date that you can check back in when the staffer has brought this comment to the rep or has shared the legislation with them or whatever it is you're asking for. Ask for a date you can check back in and watch how long it takes them to give one to you. Because they do not want to do that. They don't want homework. They don't want accountability. It's not that hard, but they are very interested in avoiding it.
Yeah, and imagine normal people. Imagine going to work, whatever it is that you do. Let's say you're a file clerk, and you walk into the office, and people are like, "Hey, can you file this for me?" And you just sit it there and wait 2 years. And you don't do it. You're not filing. Guess what's going to happen?
And then you go to your boss and you're like, oh, well, I was going to file it, but, we are going to order new filing cabinets and then I have to refile it again. And so I didn't do it, right? But it was all for smart people reasons. Like, imagine justifying it like that.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense why people keep voting for people that refuse to do the job that they're applying for.
I mean, a lot of it is that they don't know they're refusing, because, I mean, at least on the Democrat side of the aisle, a lot of their rhetoric is about, oh, we've been stopped, we've been blocked, we can't do anything because the bad guys are here and we're stuck, right?
Yeah.
They're the most powerful people in the world. If they want to do something, they will find a way to do it.
Especially these days. There's no more excuses for, oh, they did it. Trump is single-handedly ruining this country. So you can't tell me that nothing is possible.
Yeah.
He became a billionaire after becoming the president.
Yep.
Dreams can come true, I guess.
The corruption piece of it, that's something that we have not written an article of impeachment about corruption yet. We have tyranny, we have treason, and we have obstruction of justice for the Epstein files. The corruption article, it's remarkable to me that nobody has written this yet, because there are there are endless examples of this man enriching himself at the expense of, or as a result of his position, right? 9 months ago, he got a plane, right, from Qatar. And that plane is almost here to be delivered. And nobody has raised this question. Not once.
I've been hearing this thing about he stole the oil from Venezuela, and there's like some huge number that starts with a 5. That amount of money is put away in some bank account that only he has access to. That's not even in the United States. Is like in the
Qatar.
Somewhere in the middle of nowhere. There's Qatar, is it? Of course, obviously.
I mean,
You're
I think
killing me,
Rubio
Smalls.
just said that people could ask them for the money and they would distribute it, and that was the whole plan. I mean, sure, I guess. Why not? I really think it is a testament to the fact that action trumps literally everything. If you are willing to act right now, as Trump and his administration are, obvious that Congress won't do anything about it at this point in time, and so they can just do whatever they want. And that's the whole game, right? Getting Congress to act as a co-equal branch of government, because they are not doing it right now.
Let's jump into your military career.
Sure.
What branch were you in?
Air Force.
Air Force. All right. All right. I
Yep.
was in the Army.
Okay, thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours. Even though it was in the Air Force,
I know. I got nothing to say about that.
Where did you serve? Where did you do basic, and where were you stationed?
I was in Lackland for basic, and I was stationed up in Wyoming.
Okay. Wyoming. Isn't that where Qatar has a new training facility?
I believe that was Montana that they were putting it
Is
in.
it
I can't
Montana?
remember, but yeah, somewhere out in the west
We're
they
gonna have
have.
to call Russell and be like, son. What made you join the military?
I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and there's no other way for me to go to college, so that's what I did. And I was real upfront about it, right? Like I will trade my time for the college degree, and that's what I did the 4 years through ROTC.
Yeah. Yep. Same here. I didn't want to go to not that community. I ended up going to community college for my first degree, but I needed a way out.
Yeah, it's a way out for a ton of people, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that's one of the things that makes veteran org so powerful right now, is that we all did, make that very conscious decision to go and serve. And it's, boy,
To serve what though? To serve
yeah,
what?
it's a good question, right? To serve the oath I swore was to support and defend the Constitution
Yes,
against
ma'am.
all enemies, foreign and domestic. So
That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
And that just don't go away just like that.
it does not. And I really hope that there is, the veteran community, I think, struggles a little bit to find like a cohesive organizing structure. And I really hope that all of these groups that are kind of circling around this topic now are able to come together and say, like, we served the country once, and this is how we're serving it now. We must replace, remove, impeach this administration. I feel comfortable saying there's a domestic enemy of the Constitution in the White House, and I really
100%.
hope more people do. Yeah.
Yeah, he's already threatened it. He's already threatened it. But beyond all the actions that he's done, he's already joked around about pausing it or whatever it was that in his
Doesn't know if he has to uphold it.
Yeah. Nah, we good, dude. We good. we're talking about veterans, and yeah, it's for me being a veteran, it drives me nuts that the Stephen Millers, that the Donald Trumps, that all these folks that were too afraid to put them to actually strap them on, are the ones that are running the government, and now they're talking with such big, powerful words. Understanding that this country taught me how to grab you by your throat. It's bananas that normal people are looking at cowards and looking at them and then saying that veterans aren't at that level.
Yeah. This is actually part of why we built out an article of impeachment for treason, right? Because we had the forcible federalization of the National Guard. We had the deployment of the National Guard into Portland and Illinois over the objections of the people the Constitution vests with safety and security of those states, right? And now we have the paramilitary force. That is the same thing is happening. It is an agent of the federal government, and they are being deployed into cities. So the part of the reason that we did, the reason that we did a treason article is because Trump's administration is attempting to revolutionize the United States government by force. He uses force to get what he wants. He did it with the National Guard and forcibly deploying the National Guard. He's doing it now with the paramilitary forces through DHS. And he's even talked about bringing up actual military folks currently serving MPs, right, to step in. And the Constitution defines treason. It's the only crime that is defined by the Constitution, and it's defined as levying war against the United States. And that's what's happening.
Literally.
Simple. Yeah. So the treason argument is the one that we are currently focusing the most on. Every Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern, we have a treason teach-in. Our constitutional scholar talks about how and why you can bring treason into mainstream discussions about what is occurring in this country.
And that's where we had technical difficulties. Thanks again to Keira Havens for coming on the channel. And thanks again for agreeing to come back to finish this conversation. All of her efforts and this organization's efforts and everyone who is signing up to be a Courage candidate. Thank you to all of you guys. Everything that these folks are doing seems to be the right thing to fight against whatever is happening in the United States right now. Anyway, with that, we're out.